The research station on Kepler 442b hummed with quiet activity as scientists from 12 different species worked side by side. Dr. Elena Vasquez checked her datapad while watching her 8-year-old daughter, Maya, color pictures of alien flowers in the corner of the lab. The human woman had brought Maya to the station for the summer break, knowing the child loved seeing all the strange and wonderful creatures that lived among the stars. "Mama, look!" Maya held up her drawing of a Zephyrian in flight. The crayon version showed bright purple and blue wings spread wide. Elena smiled. The Zephyrians were Maya's favorite aliens on the station. The moth-like being stood only as tall as Maya herself, with delicate wings that sparkled like jewels and large compound eyes that could see colors humans couldn't even imagine. They spoke in musical tones that sounded like singing, and they glowed softly in the dark like living nightlights. 3 young Zephyrians worked in Elena's lab. Whisper of Wind was the team leader, his silver wings marked with intricate patterns that showed his rank. Song in Darkness had deep purple wings and the gentlest voice of all. Gentle Current was the youngest, barely an adult by Zephyrian standards, with wings that shifted from blue to green depending on her mood. "The human child draws well," Whisper of Wind said in his melodic voice, hovering near Maya's table. "She captures the spirit of flight." Maya giggled as Whisper of Wind's wings created a small breeze that ruffled her hair. The Zephyrians had taken to Maya immediately, fascinated by her curiosity and delighted by her fearless approach to new things. Most species found the Zephyrians too fragile to interact with safely, but Maya treated them like the friends they had become. Elena watched her daughter chat with the aliens and felt grateful for this peaceful place. The research station was a symbol of cooperation in a galaxy often torn by conflict. Here, predator and prey species worked together, sharing knowledge and building understanding. It was the kind of future Elena wanted for Maya. The alarm shattered the peaceful afternoon. Red lights flashed throughout the station as the emergency broadcast crackled to life. "All personnel, this is Commander Torres. We have incoming hostile ships. Hegemony raiders estimated arrival in 15 minutes. Begin immediate evacuation procedures." Elena's blood turned to ice. The Hegemony was a collection of aggressive species that viewed peaceful worlds as easy targets. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they couldn't use. Women and children were especially valuable to them as slaves. "Maya, come here right now," Elena called, trying to keep the fear out of her voice. The lab erupted into controlled chaos as scientists began destroying sensitive data and gathering essential equipment. The Zephyrians moved in swift, coordinated patterns, their musical voices now carrying urgent harmonies that helped coordinate the evacuation. Elena grabbed Maya's hand and headed for the evacuation pods. But the corridors were packed with fleeing personnel. Different species moved at different speeds, and the narrow hallways became bottlenecks of confusion. Elena held Maya close as they were swept along in the crowd. "I can't breathe, Mama," Maya gasped, pressed against Elena's chest by the crush of bodies. A massive explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by the dim red glow of emergency lighting. In the darkness and chaos, Elena felt Maya's hand slip from hers. "Maya!" she screamed. But the crowd carried her forward. She fought against the flow of evacuees, pushing back through the corridors, calling her daughter's name. Meanwhile, Maya had been knocked down by a rushing Hegemony soldier and crawled into a ventilation grate to hide. The small space was dark and scary, filled with the sounds of weapons fire and shouting voices. She curled up in a ball and tried not to cry. Whisper of Wind found her first. The Zephyrian had been helping evacuate the lab when he heard Maya's quiet sobbing through the vents. He squeezed his delicate body through the narrow opening and found the frightened child. "Little star friend," he sang softly, his body glowing with gentle blue light. "You are safe now." Song in Darkness and Gentle Current joined them moments later, having refused to evacuate when they learned Maya was missing. The 3 Zephyrians surrounded the human child with their wings, creating a warm, protective cocoon. "We stay with you," Gentle Current promised, her wings shifting to calming shades of green. "No harm will come." The Zephyrians could have easily flown to the evacuation pods. Their small size and natural camouflage would have made them nearly impossible for the raiders to catch. But they had made their choice. They would not leave Maya alone and afraid. For 3 hours they hid in the ventilation system as Hegemony soldiers ransacked the station. The raiders were looking for valuable technology and soft targets, beings they could sell as slaves or servants. Maya was exactly what they wanted: young, healthy, and from a species known to be intelligent and adaptable. The Zephyrians used every skill they possessed to keep Maya hidden. Whisper of Wind's sonic abilities masked the sound of her breathing. Song in Darkness released pheromones that confused the raiders' tracking equipment. Gentle Current kept her wings wrapped around Maya, muffling any sound and providing warmth in the cold ventilation system. "Tell me about your world," Maya whispered to distract herself from the scary sounds outside. "Zephyria has crystal trees that sing in the wind," Gentle Current whispered back. "And lakes that glow like your stars. Someday you visit, yes?" "I'd like that," Maya said, managing a small smile. The Zephyrians told her stories of their homeworld, painting pictures with their words of a place where beauty and gentleness were the highest virtues. They spoke of gardens that grew in spirals reaching toward the sky, and of children who learned to fly before they could walk. As night fell, the sounds of combat grew closer. The raiders had finished looting the main sections of the station and were now searching the hidden areas. They would find the ventilation system soon. "We must move," Whisper of Wind decided. "The botanical lab has many hiding places." They helped Maya crawl through the ducts to a different part of the station. The botanical lab was a vast space filled with plants from dozens of worlds, creating a jungle-like environment with thick vegetation and multiple levels. The Zephyrians found a small alcove behind a waterfall of flowering vines. "This is better," Song in Darkness said, spreading his wings to test the hiding spot. "Many shadows here." They settled in to wait for rescue, not knowing that their choice to protect one human child would soon change the entire galaxy. The Zephyrians had no concept of how fierce human loyalty could be when awakened, or how far humans would go to protect those who protected their own. In the growing darkness of the alien night, 3 small beings with fragile wings stood guard over a frightened child, ready to give everything they had to keep her safe. They couldn't know that their courage would make them the most protected species in the galaxy. All they knew was that Maya needed them, and that was enough. The 4th day brought the sound Maya had been dreading. Heavy footsteps echoed through the botanical lab as hegemony soldiers methodically searched every corner. The raiders had found traces of their hiding place and were closing in. Maya pressed herself deeper into the flowering vines while the 3 Zephyrians formed a protective circle around her. Their wings had lost their usual bright colors, now showing the muted tones of fear and determination. "Stay very quiet, little star friend," Whisper of Wind sang in the softest possible tone. His compound eyes reflected the dim light filtering through the vegetation as he watched the shadows move between the plants. The soldiers were getting closer. Maya could hear them talking in harsh guttural voices as they pushed through the lab's carefully maintained ecosystem. Plants crashed to the ground as the heavily armored raiders destroyed everything in their path. "Found something?" one of the soldiers called out. "Fresh water containers. Someone's been living in here." Gentle Current's wings shifted to deep blue as she fought to control her terror. The youngest of the 3 Zephyrians had never experienced violence before. Her people were peaceful by nature, resolving conflicts through harmony and compromise. The concept of deliberate cruelty was almost beyond her understanding. "What do we do?" she whispered to her companions. Song in Darkness tilted his head, listening to the patterns of movement in the lab. "They will find us soon. The child cannot run fast enough to escape." Whisper of Wind's wings spread wider, creating a shelter over Maya and his friends. "Then we make our choice. The human child lives." Maya looked up at the 3 aliens who had become her protectors. She was old enough to understand what they were saying. The bad aliens were coming and her friends were going to fight them. But Zephyrians weren't fighters. They were gentle beings who made beautiful music and grew wonderful plants. "They weren't soldiers. You should fly away," Maya whispered. "You can escape. I don't want you to get hurt because of me." Gentle Current touched Maya's cheek with one delicate wingtip. "We do not leave family behind. You are family now." The footsteps were almost on top of them. Through the vines, Maya could see the gleam of weapons and armor. The soldiers had spread out to surround their hiding place. "Now," Whisper of Wind said. The 3 Zephyrians moved as one. Whisper of Wind shot upward, his wings beating frantically as he released a sonic burst that shattered the lab's glass ceiling. Fragments of transparent aluminum rained down, creating chaos and confusion among the soldiers. Song in Darkness spread his wings wide and released clouds of pheromones that immediately filled the air with a thick, sparkly mist. The chemicals didn't hurt the soldiers, but they confused their targeting systems and made it impossible for them to see clearly. Gentle Current grabbed Maya and pulled her deeper into the vegetation, away from the soldiers' initial position. "Run, little star friend, find the emergency beacon," but Maya wouldn't leave. "Come with me." "Cannot fly with you, too heavy for our wings," Gentle Current explained sadly. "But you must live. Tell others what happened here." The soldiers burst through the vines, their weapons raised. They were massive beings from the hegemony's warrior caste, each one standing over 7 feet tall and covered in thick armor. Their faces were hidden behind battle masks, but their aggressive postures spoke of violence and cruelty. "There!" one of them shouted, pointing at Maya. "The human youngling!" Whisper of Wind dove from above, using his sonic abilities to disorient the soldier reaching for Maya. The sound waves weren't powerful enough to hurt the armored raider, but they made him stumble and miss his grab. Song in Darkness flew directly at another soldier's face, releasing more pheromone clouds and beating his wings against the alien's optical sensors. The raider swatted at him like he was an annoying insect, but Song in Darkness was too quick to catch. Gentle Current placed herself between Maya and the largest of the soldiers. The Zephyrian spread her wings as wide as they would go, making herself look bigger than she really was. Her entire body glowed with bright, shifting colors as she activated every defensive ability her species possessed. "You will not touch the child," she sang, her voice carrying harmonics that expressed absolute determination. The soldier laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the destroyed lab. "Little bug thinks it can fight us." He raised his plasma rifle and fired. The energy beam caught Gentle Current in the chest, burning through her delicate exoskeleton instantly. She fell to the ground, her wings still spread protectively, but her light beginning to fade. "No," Maya screamed, trying to reach her friend. Whisper of Wind saw his companion fall, and something changed in him. The peaceful Zephyrian released a sonic scream unlike anything his species had ever produced. The sound shattered equipment throughout the lab and sent the soldiers stumbling backward with damaged hearing systems. Song in Darkness joined his voice to Whisper of Winds, creating a harmony of rage and grief that made the very air vibrate. But their voices couldn't stop the plasma weapons. The soldiers recovered quickly and began firing systematically. Whisper of Wind fell next, his silver wings crumpled and his singing voice silenced forever. Song in Darkness lasted only moments longer, his purple wings losing their color as life fled from his body. Maya crawled to where Gentle Current lay dying. The young Zephyrian's compound eyes found the human child's face and focused with great effort. "Take this," Gentle Current whispered, producing a small, glowing cocoon from a pouch in her body. "Zephyrian blessing. For protection always." Maya clutched the warm cocoon to her chest as Gentle Current's light finally faded completely. The 3 Zephyrians lay around her like fallen guardians, their wings spread in death as they had been in life. The soldiers moved forward to claim their prize, but alarms began blaring throughout the station. Rescue ships had finally arrived, drawn by the emergency beacons the Zephyrians had activated with their dying songs. "Too late," the lead soldier growled. "Grab the kid and go." But Maya was no longer where they expected her to be. In the chaos of the final battle, she had crawled into a deep crevice behind the waterfall. The soldiers couldn't reach her without heavy cutting equipment, and they didn't have time. "Leave her," another raider decided. "Not worth getting caught over one human brat." They retreated as rescue ships landed outside the station. Maya remained hidden in her crevice, clutching Gentle Current's final gift and staring at the 3 small bodies that had given everything to protect her. When the rescue team found her an hour later, she was still sitting with her protectors, tears streaming down her face as she sang the lullabies the Zephyrians had taught her during their long days of hiding. The rescue leader, a human marine named Sergeant Collins, knelt beside the dead Zephyrians with respect and amazement. He had seen many battlefields, but never a sight like this. 3 of the galaxy's most peaceful beings had died defending a human child they barely knew. "They saved me," Maya whispered. "They could have flown away, but they stayed." Sergeant Collins carefully recorded everything with his helmet camera. The footage would soon travel across human space, showing the galaxy what true courage looked like when it wore delicate wings and sang in harmonious voices. The 3 Zephyrians had made their choice, and it would change everything. The footage reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her command center aboard the flagship Defiance, watching the recording for the 10th time. The image never changed. 3 small Zephyrian bodies arranged in a protective circle around the space where Maya had hidden. Their wings spread wide even in death. "Play the audio again," she ordered her communications officer. The voice of 8-year-old Maya filled the bridge, speaking to Sergeant Collins in the broken words of a traumatized child. "They said I was family. They said they don't leave family behind. They could have flown away, but they stayed with me." Chen's jaw tightened. She had seen enough war to know courage when she witnessed it. And this was courage of the highest order. 3 beings who weighed less than 50 pounds combined had faced down armored soldiers to protect a human child. "Ma'am," her aide approached carefully. "The footage has gone viral across the human networks. Every major colony world is demanding action." Chen wasn't surprised. Humans had always been protective of their children, but the image of those small alien bodies arranged like guardians around Maya's hiding spot had touched something deeper. It wasn't just about protecting human children anymore. It was about honoring those who had chosen to protect them. On Earth, protests filled the streets of every major city. Signs reading "Remember the 3" and "Honor the Guardians" appeared everywhere. Parents held their children close while watching the footage, imagining their own sons and daughters in Maya's place. President Martinez called an emergency session of the United Earth Congress. Representatives from every human world attended virtually, their faces grim with shared purpose. "We face a choice today," Martinez announced to the packed assembly hall. 3 members of the Zephyrian species died protecting one of our children. They had no obligation to help her. They gained nothing from their sacrifice. They simply chose to do what was right. The hall was silent except for the quiet hum of recording equipment. This session was being broadcast live to every human world, watched by billions of people who had seen the same footage that was now changing everything. "The Zephyrians are considered one of the weakest species in the galaxy," Martinez continued. "They have no weapons, no large military, no powerful allies. They survive by being ignored, by staying out of the way of stronger species. But 3 of them stood against armed soldiers to protect our child." Admiral Chen stepped forward to address the assembly. Her uniform was crisp, her bearing military perfect, but her voice carried unusual emotion. "I've studied the tactical reports from the rescue team," she said. "The Zephyrians had multiple opportunities to escape. Their natural camouflage and flight capabilities would have made them nearly impossible to track. They could have saved themselves at any time during the 4-day siege." She paused, letting that information sink in. "They chose to stay. They chose to fight. They chose to die rather than abandon a human child. That kind of loyalty, that kind of courage demands an answer from us." Representative Williams from the Centauri colonies stood up. "What kind of answer are you suggesting, Admiral?" Chen's reply was immediate and certain. "Full protection. The Zephyrian species should be placed under Earth's direct guardianship. Any threat to them becomes a threat to us." The debate that followed was surprisingly brief. Representative after representative stood to support the proposal, sharing stories from their own worlds of how the footage had affected their constituents. "My daughter watched that recording and asked me why the pretty butterfly people had to die," said Representative Johnson from New Terra. "I couldn't give her a good answer, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again." Representative Singh from the Mars colonies was more direct. 3 aliens died protecting one of our children. If we don't protect their entire species in return, what does that say about us as humans? The vote was scheduled for the following day, but everyone knew what the result would be. Humanity had made its decision in the moment they watched 3 small beings choose death over abandoning a frightened child. Maya herself appeared before the Congress via video link from the hospital where she was recovering. She clutched Gentle Current's glowing cocoon as she spoke in a clear, young voice that carried throughout the assembly hall. "They told me stories about their world," she said, "about crystal trees and singing lakes and children who learned to fly. They said I could visit someday. I want to keep that promise." The formal vote the next day was unanimous. 847 votes in favor, 0 against, with only 3 abstentions from representatives who felt the motion didn't go far enough. The resolution was simple and absolute. The Zephyrian species is hereby placed under the permanent protection and guardianship of the United Earth Government. Any act of aggression against Zephyrian individuals or territory will be considered an act of war against humanity. Admiral Chen was given immediate authorization to redirect the 3rd, 7th, and 12th fleets towards Zephyrian space. Within hours, the largest human military deployment in galactic history was underway. The news spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. Other species watched in amazement as humanity mobilized its entire military apparatus, not for conquest or resources, but to protect a species most considered irrelevant. The hegemony leadership dismissed it as temporary human sentimentality. They'll forget in a few months, predicted war leader Thrax. Humans are emotional creatures. This passion will fade. The Zephyrians themselves were overwhelmed by the human response. Elder Song of Ages, the oldest member of their ruling council, released a statement in harmonics that translated roughly to, "We are honored beyond words by this gift of protection. The sacrifice of our 3 young ones has created something beautiful and unexpected. But it was Maya's mother, Dr. Elena Vasquez, who perhaps understood the situation best." In an interview with Galactic News Network, she explained what others had missed. "People keep calling this unusual human behavior," she said while Maya played quietly nearby. "But it's not unusual at all. Those 3 Zephyrians did something that humans understand perfectly. They protected a child who wasn't their own because it was the right thing to do. When you do that for us, you become part of our family, and humans will do anything to protect family." The declaration was signed into law the following week. Earth's most powerful warships began arriving in Zephyrian space, taking up positions around every inhabited world. The message was clear to everyone in the galaxy. The Zephyrians were no longer alone. In the children's ward of New Geneva Hospital, Maya sat by her window watching the ships launch from Earth's orbital yards. Each vessel carried humans willing to fight and die for beings they had never met. All because 3 small aliens had been willing to do the same for 1 human child. She held Gentle Current's cocoon up to the starlight and whispered a promise. "I'll visit your world someday. And when I do, I'll make sure it's safe." Outside her window, the galaxy was about to learn what human protection really meant. 6 months after the declaration, the galaxy looked very different around Zephyrian space. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UES Guardian, watching a Zephyrian transport ship glide gracefully between the massive human dreadnoughts that now protected every major shipping lane. The delicate vessel looked like a soap bubble floating between steel mountains, but it traveled without fear for the first time in decades. "Contact approaching from Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. "Configuration matches hegemony radar patterns." Santos smiled grimly. "Let them come close enough to see our transponder signals. Then we'll send them a message about respecting our protected species." The raider ship had been stalking the Zephyrian transport for 3 days, waiting for the right moment to attack. The pirates aboard probably thought they were about to claim an easy prize. Zephyrian biotechnology was valuable on the black market, and the gentle aliens had never been able to defend themselves. They hadn't expected to find 3 human warships waiting for them. "This is Captain Santos of the United Earth ship Guardian," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You are threatening a species under Earth's protection. Change course immediately or face the consequences." The raider ship's response was predictable. They fired a warning shot across the Zephyrian transport's bow, probably expecting the humans to negotiate or retreat rather than risk a fight over aliens. They were wrong. Santos nodded to her weapons officer. "Full spread. Make it quick." The Guardian's missile barrage destroyed the raider ship in less than 30 seconds. The explosion lit up the darkness between the stars like a brief, violent sun. "Signal the transport that they're clear to proceed," Santos ordered, "and send a message to Hegemony Command. That's what happens when you threaten our people." Similar scenes were playing out across Zephyrian space as human forces established their new role as protectors. The galaxy's predator species quickly learned that attacking Zephyrians meant facing the full might of human military technology. On the Zephyrian homeworld, the changes were even more dramatic. Commander Jake Morrison walked through the crystal gardens of the capital city, marveling at the alien architecture that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being built. The Zephyrians had designed their cities to work with nature, creating spiraling towers that housed both people and the flying creatures they called home. "The defense grid is almost complete," reported his aide, Lieutenant Parker. "Once the orbital platforms are online, nothing will reach this world without our permission." Morrison nodded, but his attention was focused on a group of young Zephyrians playing in a nearby clearing. They were practicing aerial maneuvers, their small wings carrying them in complex patterns through the air. For the first time in their species' history, these children could play without fear of raiders or slavers. "Commander," a melodic voice called from behind him. Elder Song of Ages approached, flanked by 2 other members of the Zephyrian Council. The ancient alien's wings were silver with age, and his compound eyes held the wisdom of centuries. "Elder," Morrison replied, offering the formal wing-spread greeting that humans had learned to show respect to Zephyrian dignitaries. "We wish to discuss the cultural exchange programs." Song of Ages sang in harmonics that Morrison's translator converted to words. "Our people are eager to learn from yours as you learn from us." The exchange programs had been Elena Vasquez's idea. If humans were going to protect the Zephyrians permanently, both species needed to understand each other better. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian biotechnicians, sharing knowledge that benefited everyone. "The bioengineering projects are exceeding all expectations," Morrison reported. "Your people's ability to grow living structures is revolutionizing our defense systems. The hybrid armor plating grown from Zephyrian organisms is stronger than anything we've produced artificially." Song of Ages' wings shifted to pleased blue-green patterns, and our young ones learn much from human determination. "Your species shows us that gentleness need not mean weakness." They were interrupted by Morrison's communicator beeping urgently. "Commander, we have a situation. Hegemony battle group approaching the outer system. 12 ships, full military configuration." Morrison's expression hardened. The Hegemony had been testing human resolve for months, sending larger and larger forces to probe Earth's commitment to protecting the Zephyrians. This was their biggest challenge yet. "Sound general quarters," he ordered. "Launch all fighters and signal the fleet. Time to remind the Hegemony why they should leave our people alone." The space battle that followed lasted 6 hours and became known throughout the galaxy as the Battle of Crystal Point. The Hegemony had brought their finest ships and most experienced commanders, confident that humans wouldn't risk major casualties defending aliens. They were catastrophically wrong. Admiral Chen herself led the human response from the flagship Defiance, coordinating a fleet that had been drilling for this exact scenario. Human ships equipped with Zephyrian bioarmor proved nearly impossible to damage, while weapons enhanced with Zephyrian biotechnology struck with unprecedented accuracy. The decisive moment came when the Hegemony flagship attempted to break through to attack the Zephyrian homeworld directly. The UES Retribution, named in honor of the 3 fallen Guardians, intercepted the massive vessel in single combat. Captain Torres, the same officer who had commanded the evacuation from the research station, personally led the boarding action that captured the Hegemony flagship. The message was clear. Humans would go to any length to protect those who had protected them. When the battle ended, 9 Hegemony ships were destroyed and 3 were captured. Human losses were minimal thanks to the bio-enhanced technology their Zephyrian allies had provided. The aftermath sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The Hegemony's most powerful battle group had been decisively defeated by a human fleet defending aliens. Other predator species began to reconsider their assumptions about the strength of the Earth-Zephyrian alliance. On Earth, Maya Vasquez, now 9 years old, watched the battle reports with her mother. She still carried Gentle Current's cocoon everywhere she went, and had become something of a celebrity among both species as the child who had brought them together. "Mom, are the Zephyrians really safe now?" Maya asked, clutching the glowing cocoon. Elena smiled, watching footage of human and Zephyrian children playing together in the crystal gardens. "Safer than they've ever been, sweetheart. And it's because 3 brave aliens decided you were worth protecting. The protection was working, but it was becoming something more than just military defense. The 2 species were learning from each other, creating new technologies and new friendships. Human children were learning to appreciate the gentle beauty of Zephyrian culture, while young Zephyrians were discovering that strength could be used to protect rather than dominate. In the depths of space, pirates and raiders were learning a hard lesson. The small, glowing ships with crystalline hulls were no longer easy prey. They carried the protection of humanity now, and that protection came with teeth. The Hegemony command structure met in emergency session after the Battle of Crystal Point. War leader. Thrax's confidence in human sentimentality had been shattered along with his finest Ships. Perhaps, suggested Sub-Commander Kresh, we should reconsider our approach to species under human protection. Thrax's response was a growl of frustrated rage, but he couldn't argue with the tactical reality. Humans had proven they would fight and die for their adopted species, and they had the military power to make that protection effective. The galaxy was learning a new rule: touch a Zephyrian, face humanity's wrath. And humanity's wrath was more terrible than anyone had imagined. 5 years after the Kepler station incident, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Maya Vasquez, now 13, stood in the observation deck of the UES Harmony as it approached a small, previously unknown world on the galaxy's rim. The ship's mission was unlike anything attempted before. First contact with a species that had specifically requested Earth's protection before they had even met humans face to face. They're called the Whisperlings, explained Dr. Elena Vasquez, who now served as Earth's Director of Interspecies Relations. They heard about what we did for the Zephyrians and sent a message asking if we would consider protecting them too. Maya pressed her face to the viewing port, watching the small blue world grow larger. Somewhere down there lived another species that had heard the story of 3 brave Zephyrians and hoped that humanity might extend the same protection to them. Do we protect everyone who asks? Maya questioned, fingering the Zephyrian blessing cocoon she still carried everywhere. Elena smiled at her daughter's serious tone. No, sweetheart. Protection has to be earned. We look for species that share our values, that show courage and kindness like Whisper of Wind, Song in Darkness, and Gentle Current did. The Harmony was just one of dozens of ships now serving in Earth's Guardian fleet, a branch of the military dedicated specifically to protecting species under human guardianship. The Zephyrians had been the first, but they were no longer alone. The crystalline singers had earned protection by risking their lives to save human miners trapped in a collapsed asteroid facility. The Tide Dancers had gained guardianship by sharing their advanced medical knowledge freely with human colonies suffering from a plague. Each protected species had proven themselves through actions, not words. Maya, called Commander Lisa Park from the bridge, would you like to participate in the first contact ceremony? The Whisperlings specifically requested that the Guardian Child be present. Maya had become known throughout the galaxy as the Guardian Child, the human whose rescue had started the protection movement. She took the responsibility seriously, understanding that her presence at first contacts helped other species trust human intentions. As the Harmony entered orbit, Maya could see the Whisperling cities scattered across the continents below. They looked like gardens more than settlements, with structures that seemed to grow from the landscape itself. The first contact took place in the ship's main conference room. The Whisperling delegation consisted of 3 individuals who looked like living crystal formations, their bodies refracting light into beautiful rainbow patterns. They communicated through vibrations that the ship's computers translated into musical tones. We greet the Guardians, the lead Whisperling sang. We have heard the story of the 3 who stood guard, and we hope to prove worthy of similar protection. Elder Song of Ages, now serving as humanity's advisor on protected species, spread his wings in a gesture of welcome. The ancient Zephyrian had become a bridge between species, helping evaluate potential candidates for protection. Tell us of your courage, Song of Ages requested in his melodic voice. The Whisperlings shared their history through vibrations that painted pictures in sound. They told of their long struggle against the Void Hunters, a species that consumed entire worlds by draining them of all energy. The Whisperlings had fought back not with weapons, but by sacrificing themselves to maintain protective barriers around other worlds, saving billions of lives at the cost of their own population. We are few now, the leader concluded sadly, but we continue to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Maya listened to the story with growing emotion. The Whisperlings reminded her of the Zephyrians and their selfless courage, but their situation was different. They weren't asking for protection after performing one heroic act. They had been heroes for centuries, slowly sacrificing themselves to save others. They qualify, she announced, her young voice carrying surprising authority. They've proven they're protectors just like us. Elena nodded in agreement. The decision wasn't Maya's to make officially, but her opinion carried enormous weight. The guardian child had an instinct for recognizing the kind of courage that deserved human protection. The ceremony that followed was broadcast live across human space. President Martinez himself administered the oath that brought the Whisperlings under Earth's guardianship, making them the 7th species to receive full protection. "Today we welcome new family," the president declared. "The Whisperlings have shown the same courage that first brought us together with our Zephyrian friends. They have earned our protection through their actions, and they will have it for as long as Earth endures." The response from the galaxy was mixed. Species that valued strength and conquest couldn't understand why humans would commit their military forces to protecting aliens. But peaceful species across the galaxy began looking toward Earth with new hope. The protection system was working beyond anyone's expectations. The combination of human military might and the unique abilities of protected species had created defensive technologies that revolutionized galactic security. Zephyrian bioengineering, crystalline Singer resonance shields, and Tide Dancer healing systems made protected worlds nearly impregnable. But the real change was cultural. Human children grew up learning about alien friends, while young members of protected species studied human history and values. A new generation was emerging that saw protection and cooperation as normal rather than exceptional. Maya experienced this firsthand during her visit to the Zephyrian homeworld's memorial garden. A statue now stood there depicting Whisper of Wind, Song in Darkness, and Gentle Current with their wings spread protectively around a small human figure. Children from 6 different species played together beneath it, their games mixing human courage with alien wisdom. "They would be proud," Maya whispered, placing her hand on the memorial stone. Young Wing of Hope, Gentle Current's nephew, landed beside her with the awkward grace of a teenager, still learning to control his flight. "My aunt lives on in the stories we tell and the peace we share," he sang softly. Her sacrifice created something beautiful. The hegemony had learned the hard way about the price of threatening protected species. After 3 more military defeats, they had stopped testing human resolve and turned their attention to easier targets. Other predator species followed suit, creating a bubble of peace around human-protected worlds. But it was the expansion of the protection model that truly changed the galaxy. The Altrurian Federation, inspired by humanity's example, began their own protection programs. The Crystal Collective established safe zones for refugee species. Even some former predator species started questioning their aggressive traditions. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her office aboard the diplomatic station orbiting Earth, reviewing applications from 17 more species requesting protection. Each file told a story of courage, sacrifice, or extraordinary kindness that had earned human attention. "Mom," Maya called from the doorway, "the Zephyrian youth delegation is here for the ceremony." Elena smiled, watching her daughter, who had grown from a frightened child into a confident young woman who served as a bridge between species. Today's ceremony would commemorate the 5th anniversary of the Protection Accords, and Maya would address the Galactic Assembly as the official representative of all protected species. The ceremony took place in the great crystal amphitheater that the Zephyrians had grown, specifically for such occasions. Representatives from hundreds of species attended, including delegations from worlds that had never shown interest in peaceful cooperation before. Maya stood at the podium, no longer the small child who had hidden in ventilation shafts, but still carrying Gentle Current's blessing cocoon. Her words would be transmitted across the galaxy, carrying a message that had started with 3 small beings making an impossible choice. 5 years ago, 3 Zephyrians taught the galaxy what courage really means, she began, her voice clear and strong. "They showed us that strength isn't about the size of your weapons or the power of your ships. Real strength is about choosing to protect others even when it costs you everything." She held up the glowing cocoon, its light reflecting off the crystal walls of the amphitheater. "This is a Zephyrian blessing, given to me by Gentle Current as she died protecting me. It represents something that can't be conquered or destroyed, the decision to care for others. That decision changed everything, and it's still changing the galaxy." Maya looked out at the audience, seeing humans and aliens sitting together, former enemies working as allies, predator and prey species sharing the same hopes for their children. The 3 who stood guard are gone, but their choice lives on in every protected world, every saved life, every child who grows up in peace instead of fear. They taught us that family isn't about sharing the same blood or breathing the same air. Family is about choosing to protect each other. As Maya finished speaking, a new sound filled the amphitheater. Young Zephyrians began to sing, their voices joined by crystalline singers, tide dancers, whisperlings, and children from species across the galaxy. The harmony they created had never been heard before, a song of protection, courage, and hope that crossed every species barrier.